Welcome to the tutorial Basic Traditional Animation. All of these tutorials are performed by Annie Rodrigue. So what we've said so far is traditional animation is actually called tradigital animation because it is being done directly in the software. Traditional animation is when you create all of your animation by hand, usually using a light blue pencil like a cold blue erase to do the initial sketching, then cleaning up your sketches with a pencil. And then you can either scan your drawings in and ink them and paint them digitally, or ink them and paint them on cells by hand. So because there's that hand-drawn component, we call it traditional animation. What Annie is doing here is she's drawing her roughs directly in the software, and we call that tradigital animation because it's traditional digital animation, completely paperless and completely done in the software. So what she's creating is another scene. So although it's taking place in the dojo and it looks like it's a continuation of the first two scenes we did, it's actually a new scene or new project file in and of itself. And this is because we're going to string together a bunch of the scenes to create a fighting montage. So what she's creating is a big cloud that you often see in Warner Brothers cartoons when a fight is occurring with all sorts of things being thrown out of the cloud. So that's definitely something that you can't do with the cutout style of animation, the style that we've been using so far. You can't draw a lot of organic shapes, that undulate or wave or move, like such as a flag or water or smoke. So this is a perfect use of why you would mix cutout with traditional animation. And when we mix cutout with traditional animation, we call that advanced cutout because there are elements of hand-drawn work amongst the cutout work. So you might notice that everything in the camera view is washed out except for the drawings that Annie is creating, and that's because the light table feature is enabled in the camera view. So usually you see all the layers of the camera view with equal color intensity, but if you go to the fourth icon in the bottom left hand side of the camera view, you'll notice that the icon looks like a camera with a red box around it. If you click on that, there's an actual light table feature, and if you use that, then only the layer that you are currently on will be shown in 100% true color, where everything else will be washed out. So Annie has chosen a light color blue to do her sketches, just as you would do by hand, and as you can see, she's created a layer in the timeline that's called Fighting Cloud Sketch. So that's where she's doing all her rough work, and right now every drawing that she's doing is going to later on become a key pose, as we talked about before. So one thing you should take note of is that Annie has the onion skin feature on. It's the last icon in the toolbar on the left hand side. And if you look at the red playhead, the blue bars that are kind of coming out from the red playhead are extending to two drawings in front and one drawing behind. You only see the drawing behind in red because obviously she hasn't drawn any drawings in front of the drawing she's currently creating right now. But she's definitely using her previous drawing as a base for her current drawing. Even though this smoke cloud is going to bubble in a very organic way, you still want it to retain the same basic shape so it doesn't look random. You still want it to have like a sort of a structure even in its fluid state. And you can tell that by the fact that she keeps track a little bit of the bubbles that are coming out from the smoke cloud. You can see that the next bubble she creates often continues from those little bubbles, or that they explode into two bubbles. She's still keeping the basic structure even if the lines wiggle and move back and forth for the base structure of the shape as well. So what Annie's doing now is extending the exposures for each of the key drawings that she's created, and she's doing that by clicking on that drawing and then by using the plus sign as a keyboard shortcut to extend the exposures. And she's extended each drawing by 3 exposures, so they exist for 3 frames each. Then she's dragged the little black triangle from the end of her scene to just create a small section that she's going to play back in a loop. And then going up to the top playback toolbar, she's clicked on the loop button and the play button to watch the little sequence that she has created so far. So there's a bit of a jump in the video because she stopped and started again. So what Annie's doing now is creating an empty drawing, and you'll see why in just a minute. So then she's going to bring up the X sheet view, and then she's going to mark her first drawing as a key drawing, and that last empty drawing that she created also as a key drawing. Then she's going back into the camera view and clicking on the keyframe button for the easy flipping toolbar. And so what that does is that it will only flip between the key drawings or any drawings that have been marked as key drawings in the X sheet. And the reason she's doing this is because she wants to create a true loop. And because she has the onion skin on, she can see her previous drawing. And when she flips back, she can see the first keyframe drawing. So the drawing that she's creating in the empty cell is a transition drawing between the previous drawing and the first keyframe drawing, and that's why she's flipping back and forth and also using the onion skin. And then when she plays this loop again and again as a cycle or as multiple cycles in a row, it'll look very continuous and smooth. So that's one more reason to mark your drawings in the X sheet because of features like this. And you'll notice Basad will get into it in the next video that you can also choose just to show your keyframe breakdowns and in-betweens in the onion skinning feature if you can see those 3 icons in the same toolbar area as the easy flip toolbar. So after having extended that empty drawing for another 3 frames, which is no longer an empty drawing obviously because she drew inside of it, Annie is now testing once again the animation, which happens a lot in animation. You draw something, you test, you draw something, you test to make sure it looks fluid as you go along. So now what she's doing is she's selecting the extended exposures after each key pose that she's created, and she's turning them into empty drawings. And the reason that she's doing this is because if she modifies anything in those 2 cells, it's going to modify the drawing in the first cell because they're basically just copies of the same drawing. So by creating empty drawings there, what she's actually doing is she's breaking the connection between those 2 extended exposures and the first drawing. So now they're each their own individual cell and actually an empty cell. And what she's going to do is draw the in-betweens now. So she can see the drawing in front and the drawing behind, and in those 2 empty cells she's going to make a smooth transition so that the line is exactly between those 2 drawings. And like I mentioned before, you can see that if she has 2 bubbles coming out, the one that she's drawing right now sits in between the previous and the next. So in her mind, she's still keeping track of the direction that the smoke bubbles are going in, the direction that the main principal smoke cloud contracts and expands. So there's a little bit of a logic to this organic shape that she's created. And just like I've done in some of the previous videos, if I find that there's a section of the video that's very repetitive and it doesn't show anything new, I might fast forward through it just to save a bit of time. So you may have noticed another little jump in the video, and that's just because Annie once again has stopped and restarted the video. So now what she's doing is selecting the entire loop that she created of the smoke and creating a cycle from it. And she's entering in the number 7 for the number of cycles. So now that loop has effectively been copied 7 times. And then she's locked her sketch layer, created a new drawing layer, and is now dragging it on top of her fighting cloud sketch layer. And she's renaming this new layer Stars, Carrots, and Fists. So what she's effectively doing on this layer is she's going to draw objects that'll be hurled out from the smoke cloud. So on her just rough sketch layer, she's drawing a scale that she's able to judge an even distance between the stars that she's creating along that row. Because she has the onion skin on and she drew that scale on the first of her drawing in that series, she's able to see that scale throughout all the subsequent drawings. And as you can see, the stars are also getting progressively smaller until I think they sort of blip out and disappear. And she seems to be just choosing random places along the smoke cloud to have these objects suddenly appear as if they're coming out from that fighting cloud. And here you can see she's created a scale with hatched lines that are not evenly spaced apart, but that start farther spaced apart at the beginning and seem to come closer together in the middle of the arc, and once again spread out. And what this will look like is the carrot that she's drawing will come out faster out of the smoke cloud because the carrots will jump a greater distance in the same amount of time that they will jump once they hit the apex of the arc. So they'll look like they're slowing down. The movement will be very, very slight, and then the carrot will speed up as it comes out of the arc again. And you can also see, because she's so skilled, she's able to have the carrot rotate as it's being hurled from this fighting smoke cloud. And she's doing just like what I said, where you usually draw the first and last key pose and then the breakdown. In this case, she actually did the first breakdown and key pose, but I think it's because she knows what she expects to see. And then she's doing what she did before, where she's creating empty drawings between her key drawings so that she can fill them in with in-betweens. And this is effectively how you produce timing, pacing and timing in traditional animation. You don't have the luxury of pulling a keyframe farther along or closer together and then flipping back and forth and judging if something looks like it's moving fast enough or slow enough. You sort of have to already know in advance how you're going to pace your drawing so that they give the illusion of slowing and stopping and then moving very quickly all of a sudden. It's not to say you can't move your drawings around a bit, but it's not as automated, and you really do have to have a little bit more planning when you work in the traditional animation style. I just remembered that I forgot to mention that we're watching Annie create empty drawings by right-clicking and choosing the menu item. But I don't know if you remember from one of the previous tutorials, but there's actually just a button that you can use to do that automatically. If you go to the Windows menu at the top, you can find it under the toolbar menu item, and you can select Timeline Toolbar. And in the Timeline Toolbar, I believe it's the second icon. Well, anyway, you can scroll over the icons and you'll see the tooltips, and you're looking for Create Empty Drawings. So you can do that instead of right-clicking all the time. So you might notice another jump in the video. So once again, it's just Annie. And what she's doing is she created a new drawing layer that she's put above her two rough layers, and she's renaming it Fighting Cloud. So it's going to be the layer where she's going to do her cleanup. And when you're working digitally, usually your inking and your cleanup often are one and the same thing. So you can see Annie tracing nice clean lines over her rough sketch. So some people prefer to do this in the drawing view with the light table. She prefers to do it in the camera view with the light table. And after she's finished doing her clean trace, which is also her inking, now she's just filling in the cloud smoke with its fill color. So she created these colors obviously off camera, but if you don't remember how to add colors or create colors or color palettes, you can always refer back to those video tutorials. You can also see in the onion skinning, as soon as you do a fill, and you move forward or backwards, you no longer see just an outline, but it looks like a solid shape. And so as Annie's going to just continue to trace clean lines over her entire first cloud cycle, I might speed up this part of the video again, as it's a repetitive task. So Annie just got a little tired of recording herself tracing and coloring and cycling her drawings, but I think you get the idea of how that's done. But you can see all of her rough sketches as well as all the clean inked and painted work in the sample material. And that's it for the tutorial, Basic Traditional Animation. Stay tuned for the next tutorial, Advanced Traditional Animation Tools.